gather today in the shadow of a conflict that, while modern in its execution, resonates with echoes from the past. The situation unfolding between Russia and Ukraine demands our scrutiny, not just as leaders who have navigated the tempests of our own times, but as students of history and human nature. Our task is to dissect these events, to lay bare their sinews and bones, and in doing so, find wisdom. Let us begin by considering a literary lens, George Orwell's 1984. A vision of dystopia, yes, but also a mirror reflecting the very realities we confront today.
Orwell's foresight was indeed profound, but the landscape of tyranny he painted pales in comparison to the stratagems employed by Putin. My conquests were illuminated by the glory of expansion and knowledge, but what we observe now is a darkness shrouding the ambition of a single man, enveloping the identity of a nation.
Ambition, Alexander? Was it not your ambition that carved a path of destruction through Asia? The distinction lies not in the ambition itself, but in the methods of its execution and justification. Orwell's construct of newspeak finds its parallel in the modern political dialect. Language, once the vehicle of truth, now serves as the cloak of manipulation.
Gentlemen, while the arts of war and rhetoric are of undeniable importance, it is the resilience and unyielding spirit of the people that truly shapes the course of history. In my reign, it was the strength of the English spirit that defined our age. The situation today is no different. The people of Ukraine, much like the citizens of Orwell's Oceania, are caught in the vicissitudes of power. Yet it is their spirit that will endure.
Elizabeth speaks to the resilience of the human spirit, a theme as prevalent in our history books as in Orwell's fiction. Yet, let us not forget that 1984 was not just an examination of resilience, but a dire warning against the corrosion of truth and liberty. The mechanisms of power in Putin's Russia, the suppression of dissent, the manipulation of truth, these are the very ethos of Orwell's Big Brother. Our discussion must unravel these parallels.
This discussion, while necessary, paints a picture most grim. For in 1984, Orwell not only presented a dystopia shrouded in oppression, but also hinted at the loss of connection among mankind, a theme eerily resonant in today's conflict. As we delve into this analysis, remember the value of truth, the importance of nonviolence, and the power of peace. Our reflections on the present crisis should be rooted not only in critique, but in the hopeful pursuit of resolution. Well said, Mahatma. As we venture further into this discussion, let us hold these insights close. It is through understanding the past, through recognizing the reflections of what once was and what now is, that we may find our path to what should be. Our task is daunting, yes, but together we shall undertake it. Let's delve into our first topic, the Orwellian language, and its astonishing reflection in the narrative built around the Ukraine conflict. Winston, your thoughts on this matter seem most pertinent.
Indeed, George. The essence of conflict often lies not in the clash of arms, but in the war of words. Orwell gave us newspeak, a tool for totalitarian control, remarkably akin to what we observe today. The Russian government, much like the Ministry of Truth, manipulates language to shape reality, a peacekeeping mission perhaps, when invasion is the plain truth.
While I find your comparison apt, Winston, let's not forget that the manipulation of public opinion is as ancient as Rome itself. Manipulating the masses is not a novel art. We termed it bread and circuses. No need for newspeak when you can distract and pacify with spectacle and grain.
Yet there is a line that ought to be drawn. As queen, I knew the weight of words and the importance of direct, authentic communication with my subjects. Today's leaders must remember that duplicity might offer short-term gains, but at the cost of long-term trust and stability.
Trust, Elizabeth, is a currency in rapid inflation these days. Yet the point stands. The manipulation we witness now is both insidious and blatant. It's one thing to lead a people with care, another to blind them with falsehoods.
Speaking of leadership, one must indeed lead, not mislead. My campaigns were laid bare before my men. Conquest required not just the strength of arms, but the unity of belief in the cause. Concealing the truth fragments this unity, leading to a brittle empire.
Unity, Alexander? Pray tell, was it unity you sought when you led your phalanx across nations, or simply glory? The ambition for empire often necessitates a departure from the naked truth.
Ambition or not, Caesar, the tool remains the same: language. But the question looms: is it our master, or are we its? When governments wield it to obscure reality, we tread a dangerous path, not unlike Orwell's foretold world.
The path becomes particularly perilous when the line between truth and fiction blurs, leaving the populace in a mire of confusion and misinformation. A clear beacon of truth is necessary, lest we all lose our way.
I wasn't given a chance to contribute during this lively debate, yet I chime in to emphasize the core of these issues: the morality of our actions and words. Manipulation, for whatever cause, can never justify the means. Truth and ahimsa, nonviolence in thought and action, should guide us. Even in the darkest of times, truth must be our light, our constant. A potent note to end on. Truth as both shield and weapon in the battle against the distortion of our reality. Let us keep this torch burning as we progress to our next discussion. Let us delve into the imposing shadow of authoritarian control cast by Putin's regime. What lessons might be drawn from history and literature regarding this form of governance?
The specter of Big Brother in 1984 bears a stark resemblance to Putin's authoritarian grasp over Russia. In my conquests, power was wielded to unify and lead, but what remains crucial is the manner of its application. Power must breathe through the fabric of society, not suffocate it. Putin's methods seem more akin to smothering than guiding.
One must remember that true strength lies in the empowerment of the populace, not in their subjugation. Gandhi's philosophy advocates for democratic freedoms, a stark contrast to the suppression observed in Russia today. Power used to crush the spirit of the people is an affront to the very essence of freedom.
Autocracy, in my experience, is a tool, not an end. The efficiency of governance in Rome under my rule was paramount. Yet one cannot help but observe the corrosive effect of the lack of democratic freedoms under Putin's rule. It is the balance of power and the consent of the governed that forge the strongest states.
An iron fist may rule for a time, but history teaches us that the spirit of the people cannot be chained indefinitely. My reign emphasized the importance of harmony between the ruler and the ruled. Putin's disregard for this balance may well be his downfall.
The dark arts of suppression and control, mastered by Putin, gentleman and lady, echo the dystopian nightmare Orwell painted so vividly. Yet we must recall, even in 1984, hope persists. The human spirit's resilience should never be underestimated.
Indeed, Winston. Yet the question remains, how can a society thrive when its leaders value control over the collective prosperity of their people?
Thriving under such conditions, Alexander, might be a facade. True advancement requires the consent and active participation of the populace. Authority without legitimacy is but a house of cards, ready to collapse at the slightest breeze.
And so it brings us to the crux. The path of nonviolence and civil disobedience shines a light of hope. Oppression in all its forms must be met with unwavering resolve for peace and freedom.
While hope remains, the task of dismantling such authoritarian constructs requires sagacity and unity. The power of a unified public consciousness cannot be overstated.
The insights gathered today paint a stark yet hopeful portrait. Authoritarian shadows are extensive, but not impenetrable. History, literature, and our shared human experience offer the torches to light the way forward. Winston, begin our discussion on the manipulation of truth and state propaganda, if you please.
With pleasure, George. In 1984, Orwell paints a chilling picture of a regime where the truth is whatever the state decides it is. This concept is not confined to fiction. We see it mirrored in the Russian state media's presentation of the Ukraine conflict, where narratives are twisted and shaped to serve political ends. We must understand the dangers this poses, for in the words of Orwell himself, in a time of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act.
Indeed, Winston, but let us not forget that propaganda is no modern invention. Throughout my reign, I witnessed how the might of the pen could sway public opinion. Yet I always held that a ruler's duty is to maintain clarity and truth, for the moment we manipulate facts, we lose our grip on the very reality we seek to govern.
Historical manipulation of truth, Elizabeth, is as common as the conquests that fill our history books. My own exploits were often painted in the light most favorable to Greek unity and strength. However, I concede there is a stark difference between galvanizing a nation through selective storytelling and deliberately crafting a false narrative to deceive and control a populace.
Alexander, the point precisely. The danger in the current scenario is not just in the deception, but in the systematic eradication of truth from the public's consciousness. It's akin to what I described as doublethink, where the state controls the past as well as the present, making any alternative viewpoint inconceivable.
I find the entire idea of manipulating truth for state purposes deeply troubling. In our struggle for Indian independence, we faced tremendous propaganda from the British aimed at demeaning our efforts and character. Yet we chose the path of satyagraha, the force which is born of truth and love or nonviolence, and showed that truth stands strong against the mightiest of empires. The power to manipulate is indeed potent, but so is the resilience of truth.
Ah, but Mahatma, whilst your commendable adherence to truth is notable, don't you think it somewhat idealistic? The state, in its quest for stability and order, must sometimes tread the delicate dance of diplomacy and narrative control.
Elizabeth raises a point. Consider my campaigns. Without shaping narratives, maintaining the morale of an army, and the support of an empire sprawling from Greece to the fringes of India, would have been an uphill battle. Yet the subtlety lies in not crossing into outright deception that breeds tyranny.
A fine line indeed, Alexander. But when the state decides it's permissible to cross this line, we inch closer to the Orwellian dystopia where truth and liberty suffer. In the end, it is the right of every citizen to live in a society where truth is not a malleable commodity in the hands of those in power.
I argue that the moment we justify the manipulation of truth for any end, we erode the very foundations of freedom and democracy. The strength of a nation lies in the integrity of its leaders and the resilience of its people when faced with oppression and deceit. A powerful note to end on. It's clear the manipulation of truth and state propaganda are as relevant today as they have ever been. The parallels drawn today serve as a stark reminder of the vigilance we must maintain in guarding against such Orwellian tendencies. Let us deliberate on the prolonged conflict between Russia and Ukraine, observing through an Orwellian lens the concept of a perpetual war. Caesar, your perspective?
In my time, war was both a means to power and a tool of governance. Perpetual war for perpetual peace, a contradiction in terms, yet one that holds water. Putin's strategy mirrors this ancient practice, using conflict to galvanize nationalism and maintain a grip on power. It's strategic, yet damning for the people.
While Caesar glorifies conquest, let us not forget the cost. My campaigns across Persia and Asia were not without end. They were meant to unify and establish dominion. This endless conflict between Russia and Ukraine achieves neither, bleeding both nations dry. It's a cycle of aggression with no vision for the future.
Ah, but perpetual war serves a purpose, does it not, Alexander? Orwell understood this. The war is not meant to be won, but to be continuous. The Russian government employs this tactic masterfully, maintaining a state of emergency that justifies its control and suppression. It's a sinister manipulation of societal fear.
Manipulation, indeed. But let's not adorn it with undue praise. It's a tactic of tyrants. Strategy must serve the people, not enslave them. Alexander, your conquests expanded your empire, but at what cost to those who called those lands home long before you?
A fair critique, Caesar, yet we differ in philosophy. My approach was to integrate and elevate the cultures I conquered, though I concede, not without force. The Russia-Ukraine conflict lacks this vision of integration. It's domination for the sake of domination, a hollow victory at best.
Gentlemen, while the might of conquest and the strategy of war are debated, let us not overlook the human cost. The Orwellian perpetual war damages the psyche of nations, instilling constant fear and patriotism twisted into a weapon against the very people it's supposed to protect. This is neither strategic nor glorious.
Elizabeth speaks truth. The real power lies in peace, not perpetual conflict. The strength of a nation is measured not by its capacity to wage war, but by its capacity to prevent it. Orwell's vision warns us of the dangers of such endless conflicts. They erode the soul of a nation, leaving nothing but a shell behind.
Yet, peace often requires strength, Mahatma. Or do you suggest submission as a strategy?
Strength, Caesar, yes, but not of arms. The truest strength lies in the resolve for peace and the unwavering commitment to the principles of nonviolence and civil disobedience. This is a strength that builds nations rather than divides them.
A noble idea, Mahatma, but in the face of an aggressor, sometimes the language they understand best is that of force. It's a complicated dance, one that requires both the strength of arms and the strength of conviction.
This discourse reveals the complexity of the perpetual conflict through an Orwellian perspective. It's clear that while history can offer us lessons, the application of these lessons to modern conflict requires a nuanced understanding of both the past and the present. The strategy, whether for war or peace, must ultimately serve the people and their future. We now turn our attention to the notion of the surveillance state. The parallels between 1984 and the tactics employed by the Russian government today cannot be ignored. Let us dissect this comparison and its implications on personal freedom.
Surveillance, in its essence, is about control. Like the Gordian knot, it is a riddle posed by those in power, solved only through decisive cuts to liberty. In my time, knowledge of enemy movements was crucial, yet we did not watch our own people as enemies. The boundary is when governance becomes a garrison.
An oppressive state that eyes its citizens as subjects to be monitored sacrifices the very essence of freedom. My heart aches, for as we strive for peace, we find ourselves entangled in the webs of surveillance, spun under the guise of national security. True courage for a leader is trusting their people, not fearing them.
While I concur that surveillance is a potent tool for maintaining order, one must tread carefully not to suffocate the nation's heart, the loyalty of its people. My reign witnessed plots that were unearthed before they could bloom into treason, yet I strive to keep the trust of my subjects, believing in the balance between vigilance and liberty.
Surveillance, comrades, under the guise of protection, often morphs into the chains of tyranny. The Soviets were adept at this, watching over their kin with an eagle's eye, stripping away the very essence of privacy. It is a dangerous game, where the rules are written by those who watch, not those who are watched.
The balance between security and freedom remains a treacherous path. How do we navigate this without losing our way?
Leadership demands the wisdom to discern threats from shadows. It is not by tighter chains that you secure a nation, but by the strength of its people's spirit.
Indeed, a sovereign's mandate is to shield her kingdom, yet not at the cost of turning it into a fortress of fear. It requires a delicate hand, not an iron fist.
Surveillance begets mistrust, and mistrust festers disunion. A society thrives when there is harmony and faith between the rulers and the ruled.
Let us not forget, it is when the government fears the people, there is liberty. When the people fear the government, there is tyranny. The line, once crossed, heralds the descent into darkness.
A compelling examination. It seems the consensus leans towards surveillance as a necessary evil that must be heavily scrutinized to prevent abuse. The question of liberty versus security is as old as governance itself, yet remains as pertinent as ever in our current age. Let us now turn to the delicate dance of diplomacy, where words often mask true intentions. Winston, your experience with the diplomatic finesse of World War II may shed light on this topic of doublethink in diplomacy, especially relating to Russia's actions in Ukraine.
Indeed, George. The Kremlin's narrative is a masterclass in Orwellian doublethink. They speak of peace while waging war, praise sovereignty while annexing territory. It's as though they've taken a leaf out of 1984. War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. We fought against such duplicity in our time, standing on the cliffs of Dover, battling the fog of misinformation with the beacon of truth.
While Winston's point holds water, one must consider the strategic merit in a layered approach to diplomacy. In my reign, words were but one facet of power veiled in velvet. Yet the art lies in maintaining one's integrity. Russia's penchant for stating one thing and doing another widens the gulf between nations, breeding mistrust.
But manipulation of words and actions is not solely the domain of the modern era. In my campaigns, I too used the promise of freedom and the spread of Hellenistic culture as a guise for empire building. Yet, the difference, perhaps, lies in the transparency of ambition. I never cloaked my intentions in doublethink. The might of my phalanx spoke as clearly as my words.
Alexander makes a valid point. In Rome, we knew well the power of rhetoric and action in tandem. Yet what we observe with Putin's regime is the deliberate obfuscation of truth to maintain power, a tactic not unfamiliar in the annals of history, but dangerously potent in the digital age.
While you all reflect on the strategic use of doublethink, let us not forget the human cost of such duplicity. The path to true peace and freedom is paved with honesty and nonviolence. The world must strive for clarity and truth, for in the light of truth, manipulation and tyranny wither.
Mahatma's noble sentiment should indeed be our aim, but let us not be naive. In the realm of international politics, the truth is often the first casualty. Our endeavor should be to hold power to account, ensuring our actions mirror our words, lest we fall into the abyss of doublethink.
Precisely, Winston. The onus is on leaders and citizens alike to discern the truth, fostering a world where words are not merely smokescreens for tyranny. The fabric of society relies on this mutual trust and understanding.
Your insights reveal the complex interplay of rhetoric and reality. It's clear, the path toward truth and diplomacy is fraught with challenges, but essential for the world's peace and freedom. Let us turn our attention now to the phenomenon of the cult of personality, a theme as old as leadership itself, and yet alarmingly resurgent in the likes of Vladimir Putin. Alexander, your reign was marked by such personal adulation. Do you see similarities with Putin's Russia?
Indeed, George, my conquests were often sung by bards, and my image adorned many a public space, not as tribute to vanity, but as a means to unify my vast empire under one banner, one vision. Putin's manipulation of media to craft his indelible image speaks to a similar strategy, though I fear without the same intent of uniting diverse peoples for a common good. It is one thing to be loved for victories, and quite another to use love as a shackle upon your own people.
Yet, Alexander, must we not acknowledge that power in any age crafts its narrative? My Rome thrived on the cult of personality around its leaders, myself included. The Republic needed a face, a unifying symbol in times of chaos. Putin, like us, understands the value of embodying the state. The danger lies not in the personality cult itself, but in the absence of accountability and the perversion of such adoration towards nefarious ends.
Gentlemen, you speak from the vantage of rulers who were adored in their times, but let us not forget the perilous edge upon which such adoration rests. The manipulation of one's image when mingled with the suppression of dissent becomes not leadership but tyranny. A ruler wise in governance needs not the cult of personality, but rather the trust and love of their people, won by just actions and vision. Putin's image is carefully curated, an almost theatrical performance of strength, yet it masks the erosion of freedoms, a fact not lost on those who truly govern wisely.
The discourse so far assumes that a ruler's image is but a tool, benign or malign based on intent and outcome. However, the very foundation of a cult of personality is antithetical to the values of democracy and equality. It distracts from the principles of collective governance and societal welfare. A leader ought to be one among many, not above, for true progress is achieved not by the elevation of one, but by the upliftment of all. In this, Putin's methodology reveals a deep-seated fear of dissent, a sign of weakness rather than strength.
Indeed, Mahatma, but remember that the power of personality and leadership cannot be wholly condemned. Churchill himself, I say modestly, used his public perception to bolster British resolve during our darkest hours. Yet, the distinction lies in the purpose. Leadership that seeks to elevate a nation, to defend it against genuine threats, differs starkly from leadership that manipulates public perception for personal aggrandizement and the maintenance of power. Putin's rule, marked by such manipulation, sows division and distrust, employing the cult of personality not as a means to lead, but as a weapon against his own populace.
True, the veneer of infallibility that comes with such cults can indeed prove a double-edged sword. My legacy was built upon the battlefields and cities I forged, my mistakes laid bare for all to see. This transparency, this humanity, is missing from Putin's carefully constructed image, leaving little room for genuine connection or critique.
Yet we must ponder, can large swaths of people be led without some form of personal embodiment at the helm? The human condition yearns for symbols, for heroes and villains. The challenge does not lie in the existence of such figures, but in our response to them, in the systems we construct to balance their influence.
A thought-provoking discussion indeed. It is clear that while the cult of personality can serve to unify and inspire, it harbors the potential for great abuse. The lens of history offers us numerous examples, yet the future hinges on our ability to learn from these precedents. Let us continue our vigilance, fostering leadership that is both strong and accountable, ensuring that liberty and democracy remain the cornerstones of our societies. Let us now pivot to the engineering of minds through the lens of history and education. Elizabeth, your reign saw an explosion in arts and education. What say you on current practices?
I would assert the pen is indeed mightier than the sword, but only when it pens the truth. In my time, exploration and enlightenment began to flourish because we sought knowledge as genuine light, not the darkness of manipulated truths. Today's singular narratives in education and media, particularly viewed in the Russian context, are a dire misstep. They not only disservice the populace, but endanger the very fabric of free thought.
Here. But let me remind you, Elizabeth, that the manipulation of historical narratives is hardly a novelty. Our enemy in the Great War, and again in the Second World War, sought to rewrite history to serve their own dark purposes. It's a tactic as old as conflict itself. The Russians are merely the latest to employ it, though with a modern twist: digital dissemination. The result remains the same: a populace kept in the dark, with torches handed out only to those who pledge allegiance to the state's cause.
True, but our responsibility, Winston, is to keep alight the beacon of truth, else we find ourselves floundering in the same shadows we seek to dispel.
And what of the strategy in this manipulation? Let me be clear. In Rome, we understood the value of a populace aligned with the state's vision. It is a tool of governance. Yet, here lies the difference. We sought to elevate Rome and its people. The lens through which history is viewed could be, shall we say, favorable, but not at the expense of Rome's core values or achievements.
Caution, Caesar. Your Rome also knew how to rewrite its missteps, often glorifying conquest and diminishing defeat. I conquered not merely to expand, but to unite and learn from the cultures I encountered. My aim, though often met with bloodshed, was to meld these realms into a greater understanding. The danger today with Russia's narrative is not in the glorification of the past, but in the poisoning of the present, the erasure of the current for a fallacy, a shadow of truth designed to mislead rather than enlighten.
But gentlemen and lady, we must not lose sight of the spirit that seeks no conquest, that does not bend truth as a means to an end. The greatest lesson from history, one that finds scant space in education today, is the power of nonviolent resistance, of truth's unstoppable force when wielded with moral conviction. Current narratives may seek to obscure truth, but they will never extinguish it. The role of education should be to encourage the pursuit of truth in all its forms, not to narrow the path to only that which serves the state. A valid point, Mahatma. The discussion today reveals not only the perils we face in the manipulation of history and education, but the importance of our roles as leaders in ensuring the torch of truth remains lit and is carried forward by future generations. Our debate has once again underscored the responsibility of leadership not to the glorification of personal power, but to the eternal quest for truth and enlightenment. Let us now turn our gaze toward the role of patriotism in the context of conflict. How is the appeal to nationalistic fervor used, possibly abused, in the gearing of a nation towards war? It is my firm belief that using patriotism to justify war is a grievous misstep. True patriotism, in my view, is love of the land and its people, striving for its betterment and peace, not for its embroilment in conflict. The cost of war weighs heavily on the soul of a nation.
But Mahatma, do you not see? Sometimes it is through conflict that a nation truly unites. My campaigns across Asia were not merely conquests, but a means to spread Hellenic culture and to bind disparate peoples under a common cause.
Alexander speaks a hard truth. Rome, too, found its identity and strength in the fires of conflict. Unity, forged in the heat of battle, can be the crucible for greatness. It is a tool, and like all tools, its merit lies in the user's intent.
Both of you speak of unity through war, yet overlook the manipulation inherent in such mobilization. My reign was marked by efforts to avoid outright conflict, utilizing diplomacy and fostering a sense of national identity without the blunt instrument of war. True leadership inspires love for country without resorting to conflict as a crutch.
Yet, can we deny that the threat to our nation's very existence, as was the case in the Second World War, necessitates a rallying cry to arms? In such dire times, patriotism becomes not just a tool, but a necessity, a means of survival. The spirit of a people united can indeed make a formidable bulwark against tyranny.
Winston, while your point on existential threat holds weight, it is the ease with which leaders justify war by invoking patriotism that troubles me. The call to arms too often drowns out the call to peace. It is a leader's duty to exhaust all avenues of peace before resorting to the call for war. A nation's spirit, motivated rightly, can indeed be a force for good. Yet the line between genuine patriotism and manipulative nationalism is fine and often blurred. A leader must tread this path with caution, for the consequences of swaying too far one way are dire.
Consequences, yes, but let us not forget the benefits. The Roman Empire's expansion brought civilization, order, and prosperity to the known world. Were these not worthy outcomes of our so-called manipulation?
Worthy, Caesar, but at what cost? I, too, have seen the face of war and its aftermath. The unity we speak of often leaves deep scars, both on the land and in the hearts of its people. Leadership demands not just the courage to fight, but the wisdom to know when not to draw the sword.
Indeed, the wise ruler knows the value of peace and the heavy cost of war, not just in treasure, but in human lives and the fabric of society itself. Patriotism should uplift a nation, not lead it blindly into the flames of war.
A leader's mantle is heavy with such decisions. To mobilize a nation's spirit toward war or to calm its fervor in pursuit of peace is a test of true leadership. Let us not forget, the ultimate goal is the well-being of the people we serve. This roundtable reveals deep divides, yet also a common thread, the recognition of leadership's potent ability to shape the fate of nations through the crucible of conflict or the pursuit of peace. Let's delve into the potency of dissent and solidarity amidst the suffocating grip of censorship in today's Russian regime. The parallels and divergences with our past and Orwell's narrations are stark. Julius, your governance flirted with authoritarian measures. How do you perceive the role of resistance within such a regime?
Authoritarian regime, you say? My Rome thrived on the principles of the Republic, even as I extended its borders. Resistance, when aimed at tyranny, can be noble. However, in my time, resistance often came cloaked in envy and the hunger for power, not the noble cause of freedom. In Russia's context, if resistance stems from genuine dissent against oppression, it is justified. Yet the fine line between dissent and chaos is as thin as the edge of a gladius.
Ah, but therein lies the rub, Caesar. The essence of true resistance, especially within the framework of nonviolence, lies not in creating chaos, but in awakening the conscience of the oppressor. The British Raj was vast and seemingly invincible, yet it was the unyielding spirit of nonviolent resistance that eventually led to India's independence. The Russian people, and indeed any oppressed populace, must find their strength in unity and the unassailable power of truth.
I conquered empires with the might of my sword, yet I understand that the strongest fortresses are the ones built around the minds of men. You speak of nonviolent resistance, Mahatma, but I question its efficacy against a ruler who, much like myself in my time, views power as the ultimate end. Is there space for such resistance when the state controls the narrative, as it does in Russia?
Your skepticism, Alexander, underlines a stark difference between conquests of land and conquests of minds. The Russian state indeed weaves a dense narrative, controlling what the people see, hear, and ultimately believe. Yet, my history, shows us that the human spirit craves freedom. Under my reign, England flourished because I nurtured the minds and hearts of my subjects, not just their obedience. Russian censorship is a dam holding back a river. But remember, even the mightiest dam can be worn down drop by drop.
Elizabeth makes a formidable point. The iron grip of censorship Russia wields today, reminiscent of the Ministry of Truth in Orwell's haunting prose, might seem indomitable. But let us not forget the spirit of the British during the Blitz. Surrounded, bombarded, yet unbroken. The Russian regime's attempts to stifle dissent will only fuel it. The human desire for freedom, much like water, will find its way through the cracks.
But what of the cost, Winston? The Blitz spirit you evoke came at a tremendous price. Russia's dissenters face a leviathan. The stakes are perilously high. Not everyone is a Churchill or an Elizabeth or a Gandhi.
True, Caesar, not all are leaders, but each individual carries within them the light of resistance and the potential for change. The path of nonviolence I champion is not one of passivity, but of active engagement. Each act of solidarity, each whispered word of truth against the cacophony of propaganda, is a step towards liberation. In unity, there is strength, a truth as relevant in the corridors of the Kremlin as it was in the salt mines of Dundee. It seems, then, that we find consensus in the belief that dissent, whether voiced in the Senate of Rome, the courts of Elizabethan England, or the streets of British India, is a powerful tool against tyranny. The methods may differ, the sword, the word, the unyielding spirit, but the goal remains unwavering: liberty. Let this be a reminder that even in the face of an Orwellian regime, the human spirit's longing for freedom is indomitable. As we draw this discussion to a close, let us reflect on the shadows cast by Orwell's dystopia upon our present world. The conflict between Russia and Ukraine, viewed through this lens, unveils stark realities and warnings we are obliged to heed.
Indeed, George. If history is to be our guide, then let it be known that the erosion of truth and democracy, as witnessed in 1984 and mirrored in Putin's Russia, is a blight upon the integrity of free society. The very fabric of liberty is undone by the spindle of deceit and authoritarianism.
A leader's duty is to their people, not to the perpetuation of their own mythos. As I conquered, it was always with the aim of spreading Hellenistic enlightenment, not to enshroud my empire in the dark veils of ignorance and suppression. Putin's image construction is antithetical to the principles of true leadership.
Authority, when wielded with wisdom, can guide a republic to greatness. Yet when draped in the guise of personal aggrandizement and despotism, it leads but to ruin. The parallel starkly drawn here between Orwell's Big Brother and Putin is a testament to this timeless truth.
Our discourse should remind us of the paramount importance of preserving history in its multifaceted veracity. A single narrative is a ship steered by fools, bound for the rocks of ignorance. Education must champion diversity in thought and perspective.
The undercurrents of our discussion affirm the conviction that peace and nonviolence hold the keys to resolve and understanding. As Orwell's prose lays bare the machinations of tyranny, so too should our actions illuminate the path to reconciliation and freedom. Let not patriotism be the shroud that blinds us to the sanctity of every human life. Your reflections resonate with the wisdom distilled through ages, paving the way for a future where liberty and truth outshine the darkest of Orwellian prognostications. As leaders and symbols of our respective epochs, the responsibility falls upon us to champion these ideals in the face of encroaching shadows.
And let us not forget, tyranny flourishes when men do naught but shake their heads and wring their hands. The courage to speak, to act against the tide of oppression, that is the beacon for tomorrow.
Battlefields are manifold. Not all are conquered with the sword. The minds and hearts of men prove the most formidable arenas. Let our legacy be that of enlightenment, not enthrallment.
The annals of history will remember us not just by the battles we fought, but by the freedoms we espoused. Let our discourse here invigorate a relentless pursuit of democratic integrity and human dignity.
In unity of purpose, despite our disparate paths, lies our strength. The dialogue we've fostered today is a testament to our collective resolve against the specters of tyranny and deceit.
The road is long and beset on all sides by the specters of injustice and tyranny. Let our resolve be as the steadfast mountain, unyielding in our quest for peace, justice, and freedom for all humanity. With these reflections, let us part, bearing the torch of vigilance and democracy to dispel the shadows. May our discourse today guide actions tomorrow, lighting the way through the darkness of Orwellian threats to a dawn of liberty and truth for all.